Hey everyone, and welcome to today's DeFi Drop, which features Hubert, a core contributor at Stake DAO, the liquid lockers protocol that has quietly become one of the most important pieces of infrastructure in DeFi governance. With 165 million in TVL and a presence across nearly every major VE token protocol. Hubert, it's great to have you. Welcome.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Well, let's get stuck in. So, first of all, perhaps we can start a little bit about yourself, get a bit about your background. How did you end up at Stake DAO? And perhaps for anyone new here, what problem you guys are actually solving in DeFi?
Sure. So my background, it's so I'm an engineer, um, and I went to finance after my engineering school. Did some private equity, investment banking, and then uh, I got hired by a dear friend of mine, which was Julien Bouteloup, who was launching Stake DAO. It was going live in early 2021, and he managed to convince me to to join him. And since then, I've been, starting. I didn't know anything about blockchain at that time, so really learned everything with StakeDAO and started with the finances. I actually worked for Blackpool at that time, which was some NFT business. Also calculating some trajectory of Comet, um, Comet.io, and yeah, ended up very passionate about StakeDAO, which is really focused on yield. So for something that is, with this finance background, I was very interested in this part, and um, there was a very competitive environment with the launch of Convex, which has really successful launch and put StakeDAO under pressure. And it was very interesting to work on how to turn things, create like some kind of new version of StakeDAO that would be actually more competitive than all those. And yeah, now it's what we do, and it's amazing.
Awesome. Thanks. That's a great background. It's funny because I talk to all these smart people like yourself and everyone in these amazing protocols, and at least someone, the majority have a financial background in some way, apart from me.
Ah, yes.
Ugh.
You
Yes.
have a lot of developers also. You should
So I've
meet
been a learner, I've
one or
got to.
two of them in the space.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. I love hearing what people have been up to in the past and actually what led them to be where they are now, working in our industry and this amazingly interesting, fun sector. But yeah, let's get into the core of what Stake DAO actually does. Liquid lockers are the foundation of everything Stake DAO does. So for a listener who knows what tokenomics are but hasn't actually used Stake DAO yet, you basically lock a governance token like CRV. Okay, you get an SD token back. You can do various things with it. Perhaps you, Hubert, you can walk us through what that actually gives to the user that wouldn't otherwise have, and why that's a better deal than just locking directly.
Sure, sure. Um, yeah, I guess we can go back even to how it came up. Historically, as I mentioned, there were Yearn and StakeDAO, and we had these SDVE CRV, which was the first version of the of what is now SDCRV, and that was basically a transferable um, representative of some locked VCRV or some locked CRV. VCRV is not transferable, which is which introduces the impossibility for the person who locks to exit. Also doesn't allow using it as collateral, etc. A bunch of stuff. So this first version, it allowed for it to be transferred, but also the main idea was to mutualize this boosting power you have with VTokenomics. So basically, when you have some VCRV, this gives you a boost on your CRV rewards while using Curve, right? So the whole idea was to mutualize that. You mutualize via CRV under one protocol, Yearn, Stake DAO, and this gives you a share of the revenue that you allow other people who use the LP to generate, right? I'm not sure if it's very clear, but yeah, you offer the boost to someone else, and in exchange you get some return. This Convex completely innovated, and while it was very clumsy, the first version with YCRV and SDV CRV, Convex had a clean way, with the platform feed that was straight going to CVX CRV, and also they were the first one to introduce liquidity for CVX CRV, so it was directly tradable with CRV, and it was very interesting. So they took such an advance that we had to rethink completely the process, because they were adding more and more CRV, and our boost was decreasing in comparison. So that's why we had a strategic focus on the locker, and that's why you can still see today the liquid lockers protocol. It was absolutely key for us to accumulate more CRV so that we can keep being competitive on the yield that we offer through our various yield or LP strategies, right? And this we did by having a new version of SDV CRV, which was even more competitive than CVX CRV. And why that? It's because, in the Convex ecosystem, you have this boosting power, where the proceeds of this boosting power goes to the CVX CRV, but you have also this voting power, and the proceeds of this voting power goes to VLCVX. So at the start, it worked super well because there were no bribes, no vote incentives. And that's how they locked tons and tons of CRV. But at some point, they introduced bribes. It was, I recall, André Cronge, who created this, what was it? Bribe.xyz or something like that, website that allowed, incentivizing voters. And this created an opportunity for us to do SDCRV that would keep the voting power, and be much more attractive than CVX CRV. And with this version, we managed to go from 3 million VCRV to 120 million VCRV today. So it was an amazing success. We grew even further than Yearn, even though Yearn had to copy SDCRV then to stay in the battle, but now we are like I'd say 40 million ahead of them, and we keep gaining market shares. Obviously, with those governance tokens, you have cycles. When the price is low, you tend to have people locking. When the price is high, you have people exiting. So the peg decreases, and it's more interesting to buy rather than lock new tokens. So the growth is not linear. You have cycles, but we have also introduced new way to accumulate more CRV without even going through the liquid lockers, is by having people who have VCRV, they can delegate their boost to us, and get a revenue sharing on the boosting revenue that they generate. So with that, we have 100 million that is delegated to us. So we exceed like 200 million VCRV in boosting power. And this is really like the engine that allows us to have very competitive yield strategies. I guess we can talk about those later, but yeah.
Yeah, we can. Let's touch on those in a bit. But that accumulation strategy you've just mentioned clearly paid off, right? So
yes.
You've got...
Also, we designed it in a way that it would not be only for Curve. That we had this feeling. It was in 2022. At that time, you had only 3 protocols with veTokenomics. The first one was Curve, the second one was Frax, third one was Angle, and we had this feeling that this trend would develop and a lot of protocols would go for veTokenomics. It's also a cyclical behavior. Currently, we're in this part of the cycle where people say, okay, maybe I'm going to move away from veTokenomics, but you'll see probably more people are going to move to tokenomics maybe in 1 or 2 years. And so we designed it in a kind of protocol agnostic way, which would allow us to have also a liquid locker Pendle. And we had up to 12 lockers now. Balancer, Frax, Angle, PancakeSwap, Yearn, Yield Basis. I mean, name it. Right.
You could keep going. But no, that's really interesting, especially how you anticipated that veTokenomics would spread beyond Curve. So with that expansion, now covering protocols like Balancer, Frax, Angle, and Pancake, like how does managing all those lockers together actually work in practice? Is there a shared liquidity or governance layer that ties them all together, or are they still fairly independent systems under the same umbrella?
It's an interesting question. So the whole strategies, part, boosted liquidity, pool, etc. The basic mechanics of the locker, this is automated. It doesn't bring some additional work. What brings some additional, what the cons of adding a new locker is twofold. You need to incentivize the liquidity of the locker, and so that's a cost. And also you have the voting side. You need to monitor the governance. You have some responsibility with regards to the governance. You need to optimize gauge votes, distribute rewards. These are stuff that cannot be on-chain, fully on-chain, because you get a bunch of various tokens and then you need to swap them, distribute them. So you have some added complexity for every new locker that you bring in. For the liquidity part, we had this. We found a way to kind of avoid this issue by introducing a liquidity fee. So basically, users of the locker, so typically sdCRV holders, pay a fee to users who provide liquidity to sdCRV. Furthermore, there is also the sdCRV inside the liquidity pool who vote for the liquidity pool. So you have some incentives, etc. So that way, you don't have to incentivize it with SDT, right? And currently, SDT inflation is near zero, right? Regarding the votes and distribution and optimization, etc., it took years of automating to make it very fluid. Now it's super easy. It used to be my full Monday and full Wednesday, Tuesday, optimizing votes and stuff. Now we have a button, we have a just click, it optimizes everything, taking a lot of factors. You can change if you want to do some adjustments, etc. But it's in 1 hour you can have votes automated for optimized for 12 lockers, and it works very smoothly. But it's kind of a continued process, because you always have new rewards, new stuff like that. But yeah, it's automation
clever.
that allows us to scale, right?
Yeah, that's clever on the liquidity side, right? It's essentially it self-sustains
Exactly.
liquidity without needing heavy external incentives. You mentioned governance being the other major overhead. How do you actually coordinate voting across so many protocols now? Is there an internal framework or tooling that helps Stake DAO decide like where to direct votes and optimize yields?
Yes, you have this vote page where you can see all the governance proposals of all underlying protocols. We have, alerts every time there is a new governance proposal on any of the protocol that we support, and we try to, depending on each protocol's individual context, we try to be a responsible actor in the governance of each protocol.
Okay.
Always vote in the interest of the underlying protocol, and if it's neutral, in the interest of Stake DAO, basically. But
Okay.
we don't vote. The thing is, it's not like Convex, where the vote belong to the CVX holders. Here, as the CRV holders, as the token holders, they keep their voting power, but they can choose to delegate it to us. So we typically don't have, like, for example, Stake DAO has 120 million VCRV votes, but we actually can vote on governance proposal with something like, I don't have the exact figure. Let me check it, but it's something around 8 or 10 million VCRV that are actually delegated to us. And this expertise of vote, of governance, I wouldn't say activism, but governance,
Mm.
monitoring activity, it allowed us to also manage these two new delegations on VLCVX and VL Aura. And so this is great because it gives Stake DAO also a lot of power, having so much governance power, people take you more seriously,
Yes.
obviously. And it's very important in the end, even though
Well,
you're always acting in the best interest of the underlying protocol. It opens a lot of doors, I would say.
yeah. I mean, you've mentioned a few times you've got over 120 million VECRV. I believe 6.4 million VLCVX delegated, and now the largest single voter on Aura with 12.5 million
It's
VL Aura.
actually it's growing because we are above 7 million on Convex side and above 21 million on Aura side.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
quick. God, it was
it's great.
12.5 million on the Aura side. No, in the first month, I think you hit that. So
Yes. Now we're
yeah.
second month, so we are on 21
Second,
million.
yeah. Wow, fantastic. Well, look, I want to jump over to your OnlyBoost feature. Okay, so
Sure.
OnlyBoost is one of the cleverest things Stake DAO has built, right? Rather than just filling your own locker first, it algorithmically splits deposits between Stake DAO and Convex to find the best boost. You've just updated the formula and it's led to a surge in treasury inflows. What was the problem with the old formula and what did the new one unlock?
So I would say it's the second most clever stuff that we built.
Ah,
The first one is actually something we didn't even find a decent name for it. So we refer to it as staking V2, but it's just an update in our staking architecture, which allowed. Maybe I need to take a little step back to explain how yield aggregators work, is that they pool user funds in a contract. With this contract, they deposit it on the underlying protocol, say Curve in that example, and then they mutualize rewards and distribute those mutualized rewards to users. So the problem with that is you don't want to have someone jumping in just before harvest and exiting just after harvest, right? And benefiting from the full increase in rewards or price per share, And so to avoid that, people like Convex or Stake DAO or Yearn have introduced either a stream of rewards over 7 days, or like a price per share that increases progressively over 7 days or something like that, And that creates a delay between the moment you generate rewards with your funds and the moment you can actually receive them. And this delay introduces some kind of unfair behaviors or situations where someone can squat the rewards that you've generated. For example, you deposit in a convex vault. For the first week, you won't have any rewards because there wasn't any harvest. And then someone harvests, and so you have the rewards that you generated, but someone can just come in and he would get the same share as you of the reward streaming, even though you generated them and you were there having no rewards for 1 week, Same if you leave, all the reward that your funds generated are left for the people who remain. So this is not a big issue if you have very large LPs, very large pools, and that the added or withdrawn amounts are marginal. But in the context where you have a lot of governance battles between protocols to get more CRV going to their pools and bribes and stuff like that, the rates keep changing all the time, and you have new pools deployed, etc. So you have this change in rates in liquidity pools that have a 1 week delay on yield aggregators in the impact. And it introduces a lot of bad experience for the user. Our new staking architecture, what we refer to as staking V2, is that we don't do that anymore. We calculate what your funds generate and we give them to you immediately. That means that if someone tries to, game a harvest, we calculate that he was there for 1 block or something like that, so he doesn't get any reward, And this is all done on chain. And the problem with that, so there's no problem with that, but the first OnlyBoost formula that was deployed before we have this new architecture, it was working super well because it was allocating between Convex and Stake DAO depending on the boost of each protocol, of each locker, right? And so that was very optimal at the time. But once we introduced staking V2 and users can start getting their yield instantly instead of waiting for 7 days, then the boost is not so much the most relevant feature, method to allocate anymore. What really matters is the current reward rate. So we optimize now with the new OnlyBoost formula is that it allocates in order to equalize the reward rate or maximize the reward rate, the current reward rate, and not the projected reward rate. So that's the reason for this new formula, and I think it's amazing for Stake DAO. It's amazing for users because with the past formula, they could have, say, for example, the boost on Convex is better, but the current reward rate is shit because you don't have any reward currently flowing. It would still put everything on Convex, even though on Stake DAO you have like reward streaming. And so users would see the APR on Stake DAO saying, okay, it's 20%, and then when they get their rewards, it's actually projected 20%. It's not real 20%. So it was not great. And for us, it's much better that way also because it over-allocates. It doesn't over-allocate, but when when rewards are growing, it will allocate to Stake DAO at first. When rewards are decreasing, it will allocate more to Convex. But
that's really interesting. The shift toward instant yield really changes the game.
It totally changes the game. I'm also, personally creating a very small but very very performant vault, which is called Hub Capital. It's on Lagoon, and um, we do very active management of this vault. And this update allows us to constantly use Stake DAO because it's kind of constantly the best yield you can find. Like currently we have at least 50% on Stake DAO, and the rest is doing loops, because the other way you can generate good yields like that is by doing crazy loops on lending protocols.
So VoteMarket V2 then is now the dominant vote incentive marketplace on Balancer and has formalized partnership with them. You've expanded it to Pendle.
It's actually now the only one, because I think both Eden Hand and Quest went bankrupt.
Oh, right.
So there is not much choice anymore.
But you've expanded it to Pendle and Balancer, FXN, and others, no?
Yes,
well.
yes.
But you mentioned the bribe economy a while ago, and critics say that the bribe economy is a sort of zero-sum. Protocols are renting liquidity that evaporates the moment incentive stops. But what's your response to that? And do you think the vote incentive market creates lasting value?
It's for sure, it's not a zero-sum game. For me, it's more of a co-incentive framework, I don't know if you recall the times with the sushi swap. Typically, back in the days, you had sushi swap, and if you had a pool on sushi swap, we used to have a pool on sushi swap. You would try to get sushi to deposit incentives on your pool, right? And this, I mean, if you knew the guys from the team, it could help. Also, another way to have that is to say, okay, I'm also going to incentivize it, and we can do co-incentives. And this is still something that's going on, on other protocols. With bribes, in the end, it's like saying, okay, I want to have some co-incentives from Curve. So I spend $1 and you spend 30 cents, right? But instead of having the user who gets $1 in your governance token and plus 30 cents in CRV, the $1 goes to CRV holders and they spend $1.30. It's a co-incentive framework. In that regard, I would say it's a fair one, because it's decided by the market. It's on chain. You don't have teams or like acquaintances and stuff like that would allow certain actors to get a better deal than others, right? So I very much like it. With regard to your other point, saying that it's mercenary liquidity, I would answer that if you pay a market maker if you want to have some liquidity on a centralized exchange or on a traditional finance market, you have to pay a market maker, right? Providing liquidity is a service that requires payment. And yes, if you stop paying people, if you stop paying your market maker, it will stop making the market. If you stop paying liquidity, it will evaporate, right? If you use incentives to get people to use your product, this is mercenary liquidity. It's a bit different, right?
Yeah.
Incentives to incentivize the liquidity for something is just paying a certain service. But if you have a protocol, if you have a product that people use only to get incentives, it means you're not adding enough value, right? At Stake DAO, we don't have any incentives, and we have 165 million TVL, So somehow we found a way to provide enough value to get those people to come in, even though we don't pay them.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison. Paying for liquidity or incentives is just part of efficient market design, I guess. Like, it's not necessarily mercenary behavior. On that note, actually, sustainability. January was a tough month across DeFi, like really tough. CRV dropped to around, I think, 20 cents, and TVL fell to about $14 million. Yet, VoteMarket just crossed 50% of your total product revenue for the first time. Is that a sign the protocol is maturing in the right ways and diversifying its income in the ways you guys had expected? And how do you think about maintaining sustainability when markets are in a rough patch?
So it's not the first time VoteMarket has crossed 50% of the revenues. It's actually, if you go back to 2023, I think it was like 80% of the revenues.
All right.
Um,
Apologies.
it was our bread and butter that helped us survive through the whole past bear market. The OnlyBoost and staking V2 allowed us to develop considerably the revenues from the yield product, which allowed VoteMarket to go below 50%. And despite the growth, the decrease of CRV price, our growth in market share kind of offset that and enabled us to have a very solid 2025 year. January, it was a severe hit for CRV price, and most of our revenues are tied with CRV price. And so, yeah, you had, if you say that VoteMarket was the highest revenue generator, that's possible. But I wouldn't say it's a shift towards this kind of new stuff. We actually wondered at some point whether we would build some reward product, a bit like Miracle or something like that, that would, be like a way to expand VoteMarket to other cases than just, vote incentives or other kind of incentives. And you can kind of you can use VoteMarket to do direct incentives as well. You have new use cases. We don't take fees on that, so it's not a revenue generator for us. It's just like an added, use product for users. But yeah, it's not the direction we've chosen for our development. I think essentially Stake DAO is a yield protocol.
Yeah.
The core of our business is the yield, and when the market is down, it's tough. It's tough for everyone, I think, in the space.
Everyone.
But in particular, it's tough for the yield business.
But you've just launched a new Morpho Vault, right? I think.
Yes.
Yes,
that's
and your first one was in November, I think, in 2025, correct?
Yes, we kind of, it's the first little baby steps, as we say. The Stake DAO founder was always talking about baby step. It's kind of a baby step in the direction of this lending, created lending, new division, new source of potential growth. But for us, it's a way to do two things. First, it allows us to have people loop TVL on Stake DAO, because our created vault use Stake DAO strategies as collateral. So you have funds in a Stake DAO liquidity pool, you can borrow against it, and you can loop, and you can do whatever you want with it. So this is also a way to respond to resupply, which was doing that with a CDP. We didn't believe we had since we didn't want to do a new token, a new governance token, and we didn't have much value left in the SDT unminted, supply. We didn't want to do a CDP because CDP needs massive incentivization. However, we chose to go the creation on Morpho way because we believe that if we do it correctly, we can bring significant amount of lenders, and we can achieve the same as resupply, but instead of doing it with a REUSD, you would do it with a USDC, which is much better, right?
But
So
this
that's
is a
the
natural
first thing.
expansion. It's a natural expansion.
Exactly.
Anyway, yeah, regardless.
And the second reason we do that say we manage to have some successful vaults that attract decent liquidity, even too much liquidity for Stake DAO strategies to be enough to swallow all of it. We can also lend to Wrap Bitcoin and Wrap Teeth, right? And there we have a new product that is not tied to CRV price and that is highly scalable. And that's what we were looking for. Last year we were looking at, okay, how do we increase our market share on Curve? But now that we are nearly at full capacity on Curve, we're looking at, okay, how do we grow outside of Curve now?
Well, it's a smart way to decouple from the Curve exposure, I guess. Do you see these BTC and ETH lending products becoming a major pillar then for your growth going forward?
I hope so. And if it's not that, it will have to be something else, I think.
Okay. And what about, given that scalability seems to be sort of a key goal, how big could this lending vertical realistically get then compared to your existing liquid locker business?
I mean, you always want to look at what the others are doing, and like protocols like Gauntlet or protocols, it's not protocols, but like managers like Gauntlet or Stakehouse, they have billions, right? So what we want is to be able to tell someone, and we did it actually with the OnlyBoost. It was the idea of OnlyBoost at the start, that someone would, before OnlyBoost, people, we would approach people saying, okay, look, our boost is better than on Convex. And they would say, yeah, okay, I put 1 million. But with 1 million, our boost becomes lower than Convex, right? So thanks to OnlyBoost, this, 1 million, it allowed to become 10 million. And with staking V2, we can have like 10 million deposit and still be the most competitive.
Yeah.
But now we are limited by the size of a Curve pool. If someone comes and deposits 50 million, there is nowhere on Curve that it can be competitive. So yes, we want to be able to approach people and say, okay, come to my yield product. And if he says, okay, I want to come, but with size, we want to be able to say yes, right? And not, no, it's too big for us. And we want to be able to have distributor deals where, people doing those deals can be a bit ambitious about their success, And
Yeah. There's essentially hitting the ceiling of what Curve can absorb, really. But
yeah, currently it's a bit that.
Yeah. Yeah. But you reference competitors. I love to sort of understand a bit more about your space in general, or let's say more granularly. You have Convex, Aura, Warden. What is Stake DAO's actual moat here? Is it the breadth of supported protocols, the composability, the technical quality? So, if a well-funded competitor tried to replicate what you guys have built, what would be the hardest for them to copy?
So it's an excellent question. I think there are, we have 3 products, right? We have the liquid lockers, the yield strategies, which is basically like boosted LPs, and VoteMarket.
And you also have a legacy trusted brand.
Yeah, but
Which,
those and this hasn't always been the case. There were some times where we weren't so popular, but today
right.
it's much better. And these 3 products, each one of them is the best in their division. That's what we want to do, right? I believe that's how it is. And so typically, as I said, liquid lockers is the best because you have the voting power, and every action is directed towards buying the token so that like the liquidity is the best. So you always have the best peg and the best track record, etc. The yield strategies are the best because of the new staking V2 architecture and OnlyBoost, which is basically even Convex doesn't see us as a competitor anymore. They see us as a liquidity provider. We integrate Convex, and you cannot get a better yield anywhere than on Stake DAO curve. And we have also deployed on Balancer this part. So it's same on Balancer. You get the best yield on Stake DAO or whatever. And so that's how it's the best, right? And VoteMarket, it's a bit more tricky because the bribe market it was very competitive. It's much less competitive today, but it used to be very competitive. And we managed to take a hedge on the bribe market by combining being fully on chain. We are the only one doing so. The others, it's basically some glorified Excel spreadsheet. Having a lot of options that can help bribers design exactly what they need, and having the best user experience for both bribers and voters, right? So typically, and all those features have been copied with 1 year delay in the V2 of Votium, V2 of Hidden Hand, V2 of Quest. But initially, we were the first to introduce all those. So typically, multi-week campaigns, price cap on campaigns, possibility to roll over or refund or this kind of stuff. Also, possibility to blacklist some voters if you have yourself some votes and you don't want to send the bribe to yourself. To choose exactly who your voters are going to be, a bunch of stuff like that. That made the UX for bribers much better, and they got used to being on VoteMarket. And when 1 year later everybody copies it, people just don't move back, right? Also, now we like the most recent stuff is that we allowed people to bribe both Convex and Curve, right, at the same time with the same bribe. So no more headache about where am I going to get the best efficiency. So it's all. So now we nearly have 100% market share everywhere. There's just like a bunch of campaigns of bribes that remain on Votium on Convex side, which are big bribes, and those are either because they are deposited by Convex themselves, and Convex, they are very good guys. They value the long-term support they have had from Votium. I don't know if there are any shared interest or this kind of stuff, but so they support Votium. They will always deposit on Votium. There are a few stuff like that, But besides that, it's pretty much everything on VoteMarket. But those products are all the best in their line. But what makes it very impossible to replicate or very difficult to replicate is that they work together, right? So typically, Quest from Paladin, they try to do like a great UX, great, a lot of possibilities, stuff like that. But they don't have the votes. And we have the votes with the Liquid Locker program part. So we can always tell bribers, you'll have some votes because we have so many of them. And we will vote on VoteMarket. And voters, we tell them that we vote on every platform, which is true. But we don't overlook VoteMarket, So Votium, for example, people who delegate to Votium instead of delegating to VoteMarket and to Stake DAO, they know that they will only vote for Votium bribes. But people who delegate to Stake DAO, they know they will get VoteMarket and Votium bribes. So that's why people move their delegation from Votium to Stake DAO. And also people go to the liquid lockers because they know they can sell their votes through VoteMarket, and so it's all very synergetical. And if you would like to recreate what we've built, you would need to be able to accumulate like 200 million VCRV. And you cannot because there is not enough in the market. So
that tight integration across products really does make it hard to replicate, right?
Yes,
It's the
exactly.
network effect of liquidity, governance, and incentives all reinforcing each other. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
it works like clockwork now. It's really amazing to see.
it's fascinating. It
I
really
just
is.
want CRV to go to $6 again, so we can all retire.
Soon.
Hopefully.
Look, it's been great talking to you, Hubert. I could carry on. We could go on and on. But yeah, look, that synergy across your products is exactly what makes Stake DAO stand out. And yeah, it's been fantastic talking to you. I really appreciate you sharing all your insights. It's all great stuff. So look, I'm going to close up. But we always end with one question. And this question is a game. Okay, don't worry. You're not being held to account on this. But look, we give this to every guest. And it goes like this. The total TVL of DeFi, as per DeFi Llama, today is 98 billion. Okay. What's your prediction for this on the 21st of June, 2026?
So, do you call me if I get it right?
You get a lot of cool points. A lot of cool points. And curve
A lot
goes
of
to
cool points.
$6.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd say 117.
117. I
I
like
hope
that.
so.
It's a very conservative estimate. You know what's
Is
interesting?
it? It's saying it will go up. I don't find this very conservative. It's very bullish,
Well,
right?
in comparison, let's say in comparison. So what's interesting is when I would ask this to guests in August and September 2025, it was,
Yes. Yeah,
yes,
well,
everyone's
it's
like, "Oh, of course we're going to hit 200 billion by Christmas. Of course, yeah. So, yes. Look, I like it. Everyone's a perma bull. No one has ever suggested a bearish outcome. Hopefully we do see things improve.
hopefully. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot for having me. It was a pleasure to be with you.
it's been great. Thank you very much, Hubert. Hopefully see you soon.